performance. This important lecture will be taken up by Dr. Balaji S.J. He is a scientist at ICR NIAB, New Delhi. And little brief about him. Sir has joined ICR NIAB in 2015, since 7 years have been passed. He is a leading scientist here, and he has been a visiting fellow to International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, Washington, DC. His areas of interest are agriculture growth and development, quantitative policy analysis, input-output models, SAM, CGE, partial equilibrium models, multi-market models, econometrics. His skill expertise, especially large-scale household survey data extraction and analysis. He has handled more than 7 research projects at ICR NIAB. He has received different awards, also leading awards. 4 important I like to say: a Young Agriculture Economist Award, Umalele Era Award, RT Dosi Award, and Best Research Paper Presentation Award. And to his credit, more than 35 research papers in different national and international reputes. He has also been an author in 7 research reports and policy papers, and he has also been an author in 4 policy briefs. So little about this, about Dr. Balaji S.J. Now I request Dr. Balaji S.J. and welcome him for this presentation regarding agents, interaction, and agriculture performance. Welcome, Dr. Saab. Now I request Dr. Saab to present your important lecture to our participants. Please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Vikas and the organizing committee. Sir, the host is the screen sharing has to be enabled from your side.
Video is not coming?
Yeah, it's showing host is disabled.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I said try.
It's done.
Is it working? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Presentation is visible.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, all participants. The lecture is on to speak some interactions that are happening within agriculture and how this can be used in terms of modeling. The topic what I have placed is agents, interactions, and agriculture performance. And within that, there are multiple choices, and within that, we will see some basics about input-output models, how what it is, what is the structure, how it can be used, and what are all the possible domains where these intersections can be done. By agents, we say that can be anything, maybe a government, maybe a household, maybe an industry, or maybe a single firm. By interaction, we mean there are a lot of, by interaction, we mean like say if the farmer is interacting with the government through subsidy programs. Government is interacting through the rest of the world through trade. So whatever the agents, whether they are living within a country and if they are interacting some people outside the country within for a certain common cause, we can say that as an interaction. When it comes to any questions regarding policy making, now the most famous approach is evidence-based. So if a government is going to decide on anything, that is going to be either based on empirical studies, or this is a sort of combination of multiple things. One, it's not entirely it's going to be a research paper. Research paper will guide what to do. The second is stakeholder meeting. Like in many projections, including crop forecast, price forecast, or what is going to be the trade, or in next year, what is going to be the GDP growth. The first will be a model component. And within the model component, there will be a lot of stakeholder meeting where experts will be giving their inputs, and based on that, the model will be fine-tuned. And other than that, there are independent moves like Niti Aayog can take its own research project in a particular field of inquiry. Otherwise, they can float some consultancy projects to the other agents. So that there are so many ways where decisions on any policy can be made. And main tool when it comes to analytical front, this is either econometrics, or it is some sort of like linear programming based models. And in recent times, the availability of free data has expanded like anything. At least in agricultural domain, whatever data we need, be it prices or GDP, or be it a national level or state level or individual household level, all the data is available. It is almost made free. Till 11, 12, this is available in both Strata, Excel, whatever the format is required, the file is directly available. And for latest year, the raw data is available. Just if we could able to process the information, we could able to access the data. The point here is like we don't depend much on the large scale data. But when it comes to analytics, there are some differences. We do have data, we do have software, we do have free software. And when it comes to measuring our question, our research question, there are so many approaches. A very general approach is to go for some sort of studying causality through regression, maybe in a micro or macro perspective, or a theoretical or applied perspective. The application is very broad. In macroeconomics, we know well about the consumption function. We read consumption is a function of income. So in a two-dimensional figure, we can try to able to see the relationship. And if we are having adequate data, we can try to estimate the elasticity. And or if we are having little more information, like in our agricultural production function, if we are having information on labor or capital, then we can go for the multiple regression based model. So maybe if we take a log and go for the CD function, we will directly get the elasticity. So if we are having some sort of information either farm level or the state level or a national level, what do we get sort of elasticity? Then we can able to say if we are going to invest this amount of money in agriculture, then how much our produce can increase. If Y is GDP, we can say agri GDP will increase this much. Or if it is about production of any commodity, then we can say the crop quantity is going to increase by this much. And if you are having some sort of broader information, but the time dimension is missing, still we can able to model based on different classes. Or if we are having only on time dimension, like if we are interested in going predicting some investment or GDP for future periods, if we are having long enough time data, then we can go based on it. Or the other possibilities, like if we are having large panels, now when multi-country data set is also available free. So if we are having a large enough information about so many countries for about a year, and if our assumption is based on like, say, within India, if we are going to take states based on the irrigation structure, the Indo-Gangetic Plain region, their performance will be different. Or within the southern tract, their performance is going to be different. If we are going to assume those sort of the assumptions in our model, then we can go for this panel estimation based technique. We can either assume it's going to be in intercept or in slope, or if we are going to be assuming this is an independent process, then we used to go for random coefficient. And there are other methods in econometrics where we can generally go for modeling any economic behavior. And sometimes we feel a single equation is not adequate. For example, in trade, if we try to ask more questions, it's not, in trade, it's not just about supply and tariff rate, and there are something more than that. So if we didn't be able to observe that directly, we used to go for this IV based model, instrumental variable based model. So we'll try to capture it through more than one equation. In general, the takeaway is like we are having information within the economic framework, be it a panel data domain or a time series domain, we can able to generally fit our purpose within those dimensions when it comes to quantification. And recently, this application of machine learning has also increased. The advantage lies in precision. When comparing with the econometric models, the machine learning models are observed to be more precise. And within the domain, we can see within machine learning, we see neural network, we see deep learning, and the process is a sort of, we give the data, we give the algorithm, and the algorithm used to make our predictions. Say within machine learning, there are some classifications. What they do is sometimes a partial intervention of a manual process, like some sort of feature is extracted from the labor side, like we do it, then the machine used to classify. Otherwise, if both the functions are going to be performed by the machines, then we go for this deep learning. The purpose is like in general, when comparing with econometrics, machine learning also the purpose can be understood in some dimensions. Like we want to classify the behavior of certain group of individuals, or we want to predict in future what is going to be the price of stock or agricultural prices, or we want to observe cluster of states based on their performances. And this is just to show the study was carried out in the NIAP using the machine learning model plus the conventional, the ARIMA based model, seasonal ARIMA model, and to check the performance of weather, which is performing good in what conditions. But whatever the models we saw or whatever the discussions we made so far, we can precisely see the adequacy is not complete. For instance, we don't capture everything. Like if we, when we try to say consumption is function of income, income is function of something else. We can say income is function of investment made. Then investment is also not exogenous. Investment depends on how much the investment was yielding in the previous period or how much the institution is getting credit from the bank. It keeps going. Then if you try to see the wages, wage in agriculture is not independent. And again, it is determined by wages outside the state. So the linkage keeps moving. So when we try to model some sort of interaction in a very broader framework, the application of the economy-wide model comes into picture. For instance, here the flow very well fits into the entire case. We can take, for instance, agriculture is going to be our focus. So the factor market resembles the labor and capital. So some farmers also work in their field. They hire labor. They invest some machinery. So that comes into the factor market. And then when it goes to commodity market, the production goes for sale, and some part is exported. It is coming under rest of the world, and it is not independent of the government as well. So government is interacting through, like we said earlier, government is investing some money in agriculture. At the same time, it's making some subsidies, and some in PM Kisan is a good example for transfer. So when we see the entire interaction happening outside the agriculture and we try to model the behavior within agriculture, the set becomes more complex. But this is the one which is going to provide more information in our analytical process. For instance, that will the present slide will give a better example. For instance, if there is going to be any shock, like some there are some offers to export more of any commodity, like in the right side panel shows, the immediate effect is like if demand is going to increase at the export market, farmers will expand their area and production. That is the direct effect, but it's not going to stop there. So whenever production is going to increase, they will get somewhat more income, and partly they will spend on non-farm sector, partly they will spend on food, partly they will spend on investment purposes, some part they will go for taxation. At the same time, since they are purchasing some non-agricultural goods, the demand for those particular commodities increase of the market. So when more has to be produced, they need to employ more labor and capital. The circle keeps going. So whatever the effect or the benefit that happens after the first effect, that is counted under indirect effect. So this is one way of explaining interactions happening within the agents where they are directly and indirectly involved in agriculture and non-agriculture. So when it comes to the policy focus, like when we can or how we can use the framework in relevance to agricultural policies, we can see what is going to happen. Uh, Suppose if demand is going to increase for certain high value commodities within agriculture, it's not just about the farmer who is going to benefit, because some part is also coming under manufactured processed foods. So there is the impact is also going to be in the industrial sector. At the same time, there are a lot of services flowing from non-agriculture to agriculture. The entire demand will change. So we can say these sort of methods can be applied to measure the impact of demand changes on one side. On the other side, we can try to explore the impacts due to expenditure policies, like whether the government wants to spend money on like MNREGA like activities or PM Kisan like activities, or if they are interested in investing in like cold storage facilities or roads or something, which is going to benefit more. Those sort of impacts can be captured here. Same sort of expenditure or investment policy can be traced for the household sector. Like if a farmer is having money, like PM Kisan is giving 6,000, And if they are interested in investing entire money in agriculture, what is going to be the general impact? Generally, the money is shared between different purposes. So some part is invested in farming, some part is spent for other purposes. So in certain ratio, if it is spent, what is going to happen to the agriculture output, employment, income, everything. So those sort of framework are more suitable. So when focusing on input-output models, this is a sort of simplified version of the previous tables what we saw in a sort of framework of social accounting matrix. Here mostly we observe the physical input, output, their proportion, and if there are going to be any shock in the demand structure, how this input-output structure is going to change.
So some participants are telling that voice is a little less.
Voice is lesser.
Well, I am getting clear. For me,
Okay.
there is no difficulty. Some participants are writing that little low voice is coming.
Okay, sir. I'll try to raise a little bit more. Okay, the input-output framework is a sort of subcomponent of the entire social accounting matrix or the entire economic flow what we observed in the previous slides. In the input-output structure, our entire focus is on exploring the relationship between different inputs used in a number of sectors altogether, how they are interlinked, and if the demand is going to change somewhere else, what is going to happen into the output of the particular commodity of interest or some other commodities. For instance, look into the column S1. Here, the Jet11 and Jet12, they are the physical inputs produced used in producing the S1 commodity. For example, if you just take any commodity within agriculture, paddy or wheat, let we assume this is S1. Then Jet1, Jet2, those are all inputs. This can be any number, like seed or fertilizer. We can keep saying it. And what do we need to note here is this S1 and S2 are individual that can be industries, that can be commodities based on the input-output framework what we are choosing. There are two types. One is sectoral IO model, otherwise the commodity-based IO model. By sector, we say agriculture is an industry, manufacturing is an industry, service sector is an industry. So industry cross industry matrix can be generated. Or oppositely, we can choose commodity like paddy, wheat, dairy products, meat, livestock commodities. Keep on, we can able to produce the matrix for individual commodities. So that we call as a commodity in the commodity matrix. Based on our purpose or demand, we can able to choose this. This is a simplified view for a single country input-output model. At the same time, there are extensions, like because whatever the inputs we are using, be it an agriculture or industry, not every input comes from our own country. We need to import, for instance, in the case of fertilizer, some part of urea and phosphorus and potash entirely they are imported. So here what do we see is within the input what we are using, what is the domestic content and what is the foreign content. That is the idea. By foreign economy 2 or economy 3 or economy 4, they indicate the other countries from where we are deriving inputs we are using in the production process. So when we are having a single country input output models, the pattern of analysis are sort of smaller. And if we are having multi-country database, we can use it more broadly. So to begin with, the basic statistics, what we can try is immediately is we can see the potential output what can be generated, which is triggered by a change in demand. For instance, output multiplier can be said like if we are going to increase the demand for say meat products by 10%, what is going to happen to the entire output, not just about agriculture, industry as well. The input multiplier is like if we are going to increase the intensity of the input, like we are going to use more water or more more seeds, then what is going to happen to the structure? I'll show you once the demo table, then it can be more clear. By forward and backward linkage, what do we mean is like we are interested in producing more, say maize, so we invest more. But when we try to invest more, that is not going to stop just in production. So when by forward linkage, what do we mean is we produce maize, then it goes for processing industry, then it goes for value chain, then it goes for consumer. By backward linkage, what do we say is if the demand for corn is going to increase, we are using more inputs like fertilizer, or we are going to irrigate more through water, and that is going to consume more electricity. To produce electricity, we need more the industries, and that is going to use a lot of water. In that way, the chain keeps going. So this is the formula we can say to measure measure what is going to be the impact or the strength of the linkages. These two are the matrices. They are created using a 131 commodity input-output matrix. There will be 131 commodities. So in each column and each row, we can trace how much a commodity is using other commodities as an input. So, the box or the matrix at the left is an input-output coefficient matrix. Here we can see which commodity is using how much volume of other commodities. If it is more greener, we can say it is using more sort of input. So from the left panel, we can say for the first few commodities, which are essentially falling under agriculture, their use of some commodities are less. And whenever it is going to be more green, we can say that is using other commodities intensively. At the right side is shown here is the multiplier effect. In the Leontief inverse matrix, we can able to trace the impact on different each commodities due to the change in demand structure. And in other way to put it more simply, I have shown here the output and input multipliers for all 131 commodities in the year 2015-16. So one is like in the horizontal axis, what do we see? One refers for paddy, two is for wheat, like that we can keep on classify here. 1 to 26 is related to agriculture and allied commodities, then comes manufacturing, then services. So by comparing these two figures, what we can say is the output multiplier, all the input or the input multiplier, their value is little less in agriculture when comparing with industry or services. And which means the demand effect of food on total national output is little less due to agriculture. Like if you are going to eat more paddy, its impact on national economy is going to be less when comparing with the other manufactured food. So they are these whatever we discussed here so far. They are the basic statistics what we can try to understand using the input-output model. So if we are going to have multi-country data sets, there can be other type of understanding like how strong the economic diversification is there. So this is the diversification level estimated using this statistics in the IO model, not the IO matrix itself. Using the statistics contained in this model, we can see how far the economy either it is concentrated or it is diversified. At the right side, we see different countries within the Asia Pacific region. We can see whenever a color shifts from light to darker, this is moving towards 0 to 1. So by 1, we see this is becoming more concentrated instead of becoming a diversified economy. So this is the case of India. We can see in India, what do we see is we don't see any change in blue dot. We don't see any change in green, but we see just some sort of right side shift in the brown. That's the Thiel index of diversification. So we see some sort of concentration, if not strong. The Indian economy is becoming less and less diversified, and the activities are concentrating in one particular sector. So we could able to compare relative position of India with rest of the region. The other possibility is we can see say GDP is increasing by 7 or 8% at the country level. We should be able to know how much is happening because of the demand in consumption, because of the change in the investment behavior, either of the private sector or the households or the government, or new technologies are entering in domain every day. So what are going to be the contribution of these different sector in the total output chain? So this agriculture, this is the picture is related to agri, forestry, and fishing for the overall South Asian countries. But by using the individual single country IO model, we can able to trace in one particular point of time how it was there, in other point how it has changed, so that we can able to make somewhat more precise decisions. And then we see what is the cross effect of the technology change. At least in the relevant case of agriculture, we are witnessing this AI or ML based methods, or the blockchain entry, or the digital technologies. All the changes are happening in the service sector. Still, the technology is adopted in agriculture. So what we can say here is, if service sector is going to witness some sort of change in technology, how it is going to affect agriculture sector. So that can be traced. Again, this at the right side, what do we see is individual industry levels. So we can able to trace in one what is the impact of technology of one sector on the other sector, or the vice versa. So if we could able to compute these statistics for 1 or 2 reference time periods, then we can able to see the changing role of technology in different time periods. And this is just to show the forward and backward linkages happening within different sectors. As already said, forward linkages like impact moves forward. So the demand for food increases, then after that it enters into processing, then it go for value chain. In that way, the forward market progress. The backward is in the demand for input increases, demand for labor increases. It keeps going at the backwards. So here, just for an example, I've placed these two charts. One was in 2000, one was in 2018. Here we can say which sectors, in which sector the effect of forward linkage as well as backward linkage is high. If both is going to be high, our GDP or the output is going to increase more faster than it is going to be in the alternate scenarios. So the other possibility is to look into how far a country is open to trade within the IO-based model. So in this structure, at the left side, what do we see is different countries within the Pacific, and they are the trade openness indices and how they are changing from 2000 to 2018. So whatever is in blue, those countries are more open to trade, and whatever is in orange, they are less open. We see India is second from the bottom next to Pakistan, referring India is a sort of less open to trade when comparing with the other countries within the South Asian region. So then we can try to see how far a country is self-sufficient in producing their own demand. We have some sort of demand. We meet either those demand by domestic production or through imports. We can import either the final commodity or as an input, we can import the raw materials, then we can able to process it. So what is the domestic capacity to support our own demand? That is known as the self-sufficiency. And that is computed through some ratios. If a number is going to be more than 1, we can say the country is more self-sufficient, and the opposite case is less self-sufficient. India is again, the index is just near to 1. We can say we start off much closer to self-sufficiency. So there are other sort of information what the input-output based model gives. And one is just to know the structure of the economy within the country and how far the forward and backward movements are linked. What is the strength of the relationship and how far they are spread? If we are taking any forward and backward multiplier, the demand is not going to be just one other sector. There are, like we saw, 131 commodities. So if demand for any one commodity is increasing, the indirect effect is going to be more than a number of commodities. So the indirect effect is on more commodities. We can say the spread of linkage is much broader. Otherwise, it is smaller. Same sort of statistics can also be done for the external linkages. That means for import and export feature. This is a sort of hypothetical table that was created just to give a demo purpose how we can be able to understand or construct the IO model. Here, much of those numbers we can download from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Much of the statistics are available. Some we need to assume for the present purpose because for 2021, there is no input-output table for India. So here at the left and at the top row, the the rows and columns which are in blue, they are three different industries considered. One is agriculture, one is industry, and one is service sector. So the first box, whichever is in sort of brown background, they are they can be called the intermediate input use box. For instance, you can say this is the agriculture sector. The agriculture sector is using 3 lakh crore worth of agricultural commodities, 2 lakh crore worth of industry commodities, and 1 lakh crore worth of service commodities. Other than that, it is using at GVA. By GVA, we can break down into two components, factor incomes of labor and capital. Their worth is 20 lakh crore. So 26 lakh crore is the total value of input what the agriculture sector is using. That is the meaning of the first column. Like that, we can extend for industries and services. And the II use is referring intermediate input use. The IDMD is intermediate demand. So the sum is going to be the same. Row sum is going to be equal to the column sum. And within this box, we can able to see few things. If we take agricultural inputs, agriculture is taking much of those inputs from the same sector. Say the total input use worth is 6 lakh crore, and within that 3 lakh crore worth of input is coming from the same industry. So its dependence on other industries relatively less. Or if we focus the industry of the 96 lakh crore worth of total inputs, 73 again it takes from its own industry. So we can able to see the dependence of one sector on the other sector using the intermediate input use box. And in case of services, we can see some sort of differences. It both depends industrial goods and it depends service sector commodity. So whenever we try to compute the output or input multipliers, the holistic promotion effort will be more for the change in demand for the service sectors. And this is the final demand vector, we can say. So this is the final demand for agricultural commodities. The value is 6 lakh crore. Final demand for industrial good is 45 lakh crore and it is 75 lakh crore. So what we see here is out of the total commodity, whatever is produced, not everything is consumed by the public in the country. Only few part is consumed and the rest goes as an intermediate inputs in the other sector, showing those dependence. So once after this, I will show the quick demo within the Excel table so that we can see what is going to be the change in total GDP or the total output resulting from a change in final demand. By final demand, what do we see is what do we refer is the demand arising from the households, the government, or the corporate enterprises added together. If we are having more information, we can split the individual column into three different columns like government, households, and the private enterprises. Then we can able to see the effect for the individual changes. The experimental setup is just shown here. I will give a sort of demo using the Excel table, so that will be more clear. The Excel sheet is visible for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. This is the raw information which is available in the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. They are giving detailed statistics of intermediate input, this GVA part, total output, the investment for around 10 or 11 different industry groups. And the national income statistics relationship is also available. So if we could able to use these two information properly, we can able to fill the or try to construct the input output table. So here the GVA is already given here. This is just converted into lakh crores. The intermediate input use is already given. The total output is given. What we should able to know is of the total input, how much different industries are using. this information has to be not extracted, it has to be constructed from either the earlier studies or based on something else. So if we go for the cost of cultivation data, there a lot of information is available. If we see the fertilizer or the pesticide, they come under industry. If we consider seed, that will come under agriculture. It will see if we see the electricity, that is going to be under industry. So based on the total expenses incurred for the agriculture in different sectors, we should be able to classify the total input into different sectors. So this is the final input output table constructed just for the 3 different sectors using the mentioned data set. So for doing out any sort of simulation or experiment, we need information on the change in final demand and what is going to be its impact on change in final output. The formula is for most of you, this formula will be familiar. Like change in output is going to the Leontief matrix multiplied by the change in demand vector. So the Leontief matrix, if we could able to compute, rest of the things are done. So for computing this Leontief inverse matrix, we need to find inverse of A. A matrix itself is computed through Z matrix divided by this transpose, X transpose. The Z matrix is the one which is in brown color. So just for your demo, I'll try to show you how it is coming. So first, using this information, we need to compute the input output coefficient matrix A. For doing this, what we need to do is here you can, I think, see the formula here in the formula bar. Z matrix that has to be divided by the X. The X is nothing but output and this is the Z. So here what do we do is for individual elements within the input output within the Z matrix, that has to be divided by the so we can see these 2 numbers are exactly the numbers which is in the first row. If we do the same for the so this is the A matrix. Then we simply compute the identity matrix of the equal row and order length. Then the Leontief multiplier matrix can be just computed using the formula inverse matrix of I minus A. So once this matrix is ready, what do we need to do is we need to simply produce the change in final output using, you can see the formula bar. Just we need to multiply the Leontief matrix and the new demand vector. So here the 0 in 3 rows for agriculture, industry and services refers what is going to be the change in the final demand. We already saw here what is the final demand. Final demand is 6 lakh crore worth of agricultural commodities, 45 lakh crore worth of industrial commodities, and 75 lakh crore worth of service sector commodities. So here, suppose if we are assuming if the demand for the food is going to increase by 10%, so what do we see is the change in output is not just going to be the equal of 0.6 lakh crore. This is 0.9. Within agriculture itself, the change is going to be little more. From 0.6 to it's going to rise to 0.7 because of the multiplier effect. And due to the linkages between the other sectors from the industry, it is going to increase the demand by 0.1 lakh crore. The total is going to be 0.9 lakh crore. So here the multiplier, the size of increase is 0.9 divided by 0.6, we can say 1.44. And that is what the output multiplier, what do we get using the previous formula, what do we saw. So if we are assuming the industry demand is also going to increase slightly by 5%, then the combined effect will be combined worth of change in output is going to be 7.1 lakh crore. So from here we can, this seems to be a very sort of simple matrix multiplication, but its application is very wide. So for instance, if we are going to assume some sort of area in paddy, we are going to replace it with less water consuming crop. So within the matrix, there is going to be a row for water. So when from the demand structure, if we are saying public, if the public is going to be advised for consuming some sort of high water intensive crop and they are going to be replaced by low water intensive crop, we can see the entire effect, how much water we can save, how much electricity we can save, what is going to be the reduction in fertilizer use. That is the effect what the input output model gives. If we are having some coefficients for converting these changes into the greenhouse gas emission, we can straight away compute some sort of, say, if 1 lakh ton worth of fertilizer is going to be less. So automatically we can say this much equivalent worth of pollution to the environment is also going to be less. So this is one way of dealing with the input-output model. So there are other ways, but within Excel, showing those impacts are very difficult. So I'm just leaving it for your exploration. Thank you. Yeah, this is what I wanted to share in today's lecture.
Yes, any questions? So in chat, I don't think there are questions. Yeah.
So good afternoon, sir.
Swaminathan.
Good afternoon, Swami.
Sir, this input output is same as SAM, right? Are they different from each other?
Input output table is one component of the SAM matrix.
Okay, sir.
In social accounting matrix, this is a little broader. That will also capture what the household is doing. Like how much the household is spending on food or non-food, how much it is paying taxes for the government, how much it is saving in its own account.
Okay.
And also it will show how much the government is buying from, like the fiscal deficit related things. Everything will be part of the social accounting matrix. In IO matrix, mostly the focus is on the physical commodity. Otherwise, in terms of application, the SAM is more elaborated than the IO. But before proceeding for SAM, if we could able to see what is in the IO, only then we can able to observe what is in SAM.
Okay, sir. We can also do this at micro level, sir, like village level also. We can do
village level, this can be done. But whatever the information I was showing in the IO table, everything we need to collect from the primary survey. Because most of those information, I think we can't gather. We can't gather from the secondary sources.
Okay. But that will be a good study, if you're able to work out IO for individual villages and then talukas or district.
Yeah, actually, the primary, that region specific, small scale IO, small scale SAM, they are more attractive than the large scale part. Because in the smaller scale, people don't have their statistics to access. So if they're going to tell if the local government is spending something on some commodities, or that will give more information than the national level numbers.
Okay, sir. So if this study is so much complicated, right, sir, IO and all, constructing and all, how it can help the policymakers, sir? What we can get from this study?
No, that is what I was saying. The question means, what do we want to do, or want to be observe? No? That determines whether we need to use IO or not. IO as of now from the Indian government, I think for 2015-16 is the last. Even the government has not given the entire IO, but they have given the necessary information. So that even for the government, it takes a lot of time to construct those things. But when it comes to the inferences, what it is giving, no, that like primary survey they can't able to give. Like what I was saying, like the natural resource farm, natural farming, or those topics if we are going to consider, living as at a smaller scale, if we are interested in what is going to be some sort of benefit. Here
Okay.
straight away within the demand vector, what I was mentioning, there you can reduce the fertilizer. Like already there is some amount of output of fertilizer what the country is producing, and some part is demanded by the farmer. You
Okay.
reduce the use of fertilizer, and then you increase the use of equivalent manure. Then you can able to see all the indirect effect also. So what generally what we can do, or what do we focus is the immediate effect. No, so I'm
Okay.
not using fertilizer today in this much hectare. So it is going to improve some sort of microbial activity, or it is going to reduce the cost for some extent. But the moment we reduce use of fertilizer, the industry's output is going to reduce. So the industry will be using less labor, less capital. This less labor means some people will lose their income. When they lose their income, they will consume less. If they consume less, the other industry has to produce less. So the circle keeps going until it gets satisfied somewhere. So the entire effect we can able to understand more precisely in this framework.
Okay, sir. So like we are able to trace the beginning point of the circle, no? Beginning point, right? Is there any end point?
So endpoint technically we can, I mean, by using those matrix, I think I don't know, but
Okay.
we can trace it
Trace it, sir.
because everything is in specified in matrix notation. So
Okay.
all the formulas are in matrix, but somehow if you could able to place where it, I don't know how to trace it, but that can be done. That I'm sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Any other issue is there regarding the topic? Please, I request the participants, please inform us. I think no more query is coming.
Yeah, I have one question here from Chandresh. How to distribute input among different sectors? That's what I was saying. In agriculture, at least for different crops, we have information in the cost of cultivation data. So we can see how much fertilizer is used, how much labor is used, how much seed is used. Then using those numbers, if we could able to aggregate, because they are giving for different states. To give some weighted average, you construct the shares for a national level. Then using those distribution, you can allocate this input into different sectors. That is one way. Otherwise, you can see the mostly this comes to the secondary literature. You are having previous studies stating from the entire manufactured output, what is used in service or industry sector. Those coefficients you can use for constructing this. That is good. Otherwise, you can follow the previous IO table.
Any any other queries there? Participants have written that it was a nice presentation.
Yeah, this topic is somewhat means mostly we don't. That's not used for general inquiry purposes. Mostly this macroeconomic impact, mostly at the larger scale. If you want to understand something, only then this information is used. Maybe we can try for exploring this one.
That's too much technical, sir. The topic is
Too much technical also. Plus, it will take I think some few months or years just to get familiarized with. So if someone is using for their PhD, they should start learning this from this first or second year, then they could able to successfully put it. Some restrictions are there, but their application is much broader. So in the robustness is also more when comparing with this vector auto regression or error correction models. Even for 50 years or 60-year data, if we are going to have some scenario analysis, this will give more robust result than the time series based approaches. So if we are interested in precision, then we can go for this one.
It's all about. Thank you, sir. There is no more query. So thank you, sir, for giving the lecture on this important topic from the participant side, and we are very thankful. You, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Balaji.
Thank you, sir, and thank you the organizers for this opportunity. Well.
We will have our next lecture at 3:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, he has not joined actually, but he
So we will discuss
will
about
sometime.
the presentation
Yes.
about.
Yes.
We are expecting that from the group 1 or group 2, somebody if able to present something.
Group 1.
Group 1 and group 2.
Group 1 में who is the leader? No?
Leader Dr. Praveen Kumar Ni.
Like, is he in attendee mode or? I mean,
Dr.
right.
Praveen Kumar and Dr. B. Aparna.
I don't think any one of them is there.
Praveen Kumar and Dr. B. Aparna, they are in group 1. If
They have not joined, sir.
so, can we go for the group 2 then?
For group 2,
Mr. Salam Jayachitra
Jayachitra Devi.
Miss Jayachitra, Madam, maybe Mrs. Salam Jayachitra Devi and Mr. Suresh Chandra Biswas. They are in the group 2. Because we have started kind of presentation, what you have learned during this tenure. That's why these presentation are.
About the session first, Dr. Girish, this particular training is on basically analytical techniques for making the decisions in agriculture, and nearly 100 participants are there in this training, including some PhD scholars. And now today is, I think, the third week of the training has begun, and the participants are also required to make presentation of at least one tool which they have learned here. So we were discussing that only while you joined. And like the participants are across the country, almost all the ages are there, and from all different universities, participants are there. And like initially, as per their responses, it seems to be they were very keen to attend, but sometimes in online mode, since they are required to attend to their official duty also, they are not made free from the respective organization. So sometimes they are not able to attend also, but more or less nearly 100 are attending. So now I will briefly introduce to our lecturer today, to the participants. Basically, Dr. Jha, Girish Kumar Jha, is presently working as a principal scientist in the division of agriculture economics and faculty of PG school, IRI. He obtained his master's as well as PhD degree from IRI only, and he joined as a ARS scientist in 1998 and at IASRI as his first job. Then he got directly promoted to senior scientist and joined at ICR IRI. And since then he is working there in economics division of IRI. His main research interest includes price forecasting using ANN as well as econometrics, and he has been teaching these courses at IRI too. He is also guiding students and has so far 5 master's students and 3 PhD students. As a chairperson, he has guided, and he's doing several externally funded sponsored research projects and contributed around 120 research papers in national and international journals, and he is a most sought after speaker in national and international conferences. Prepared a manual on horticultural statistics for Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India, as a consultant. He has organized many training programs on quantitative techniques. He got foreign exposure, and he has worked in this area of ANN, on which he is going to deliver the lecture as a part of postdoctoral research in University of Manitoba, Canada, where he worked for 1 year under Boycast Fellowship of DST. He has also been to University of Aberdeen, UK for 1 month to avail News India UK Fellowship, which is awarded by Newton Bhabha Virtual Center on nitrogen efficiency of whole cropping system. He is also in the editorial board of Agriculture Economics Research Review Journal, and he received international travel also to attend 29th ICAE in Milan, Italy, from International Association of Agricultural Economists, and also 30th ICAE in Vancouver, Canada, from IFPRI. So he is master of this topic, which is going to deliver, that ANN for forecasting. I request all of you to, this is one of the machine learning technique. You have learned many machine learning techniques so far. So now this slightly advanced one. So I request Dr. Girish to kindly deliver your talk. I hope you can share your presentation. You can just check if I think you can. Yeah, thank you very much. And for this session is being recorded. This is just to inform you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and giving such a nice introduction. If I'm right, they are faculty, or they are all our students?
No, mostly faculty.
Okay.
You can say 40% or 35% will be students, and others are faculty, assistant professor, and some are senior one also, but mostly assistant professors.
So, madam, if you permit me, then I can start.
Yes, of course.
Hope my slides are visible and I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Both.
So, very good afternoon to one and all. And as I indicated in the beginning, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers and all the coordinators, Dr. Rajni Jain ma'am, Dr. Vikas, Dilip, and the head of the institution, director of the institution, Dr. Suresh Pal, for giving me this opportunity. And I'm not sure many of you would have already heard me some or other, because this is the only thing which I'm going mostly talking it. So, and as madam said that this is an online, so many of had other compulsions. But whosoever is attending, I'll request them that you can have a, wherever you have a dots, you can raise your hands. And if you want to stop me in between, also I will not mind. Anyway, I am going to give you enough time in the end. What I'm going to do is simple, is that I'm going to introduce the artificial neural networks without much of technicalities. And then I would like to say that given a simple examples, like in what you say kind of in a well-known sunspot data, I would like to say that how to fit the well-known sunspot data, and then a real life data, soybean data, which you can get from online, how you can do that. So with this, since enough introduction has been given, so let me move to the next slides. The first questions which always comes to anyone's mind, that why neural networks, why one should do. Because you see this neural networks, the technique of neural networks, which is one of the machine learning techniques, is not new. And if you look at the historical notes of neural networks, you'll see that the modern era of neural network, which we say now, started long back in 1943 when McCulloch and Pitts, basically McCulloch is a neurologist and Pitts is a mathematician. The first time when they gave a concept that neural networks can be used for computational mathematics or can be used for a computational purpose, or they tried to integrate the logic of mathematics to the logic of neural networks. So that was the like people started getting started reading, and it was for quite a long time when people have read these papers. And then the first, I'll say that like there are many very big, but I always believe that Rosenberg in 1958, when he gave the concept of perceptron means simplified form of the neural networks, that gave a momentum. And the real momentum came in 1986 when Rumelhart et al. Gave the popular optimization techniques known as backpropagation algorithms. Having said that, like if you look at the literatures, then early 90s, lot many papers are there after Rumelhart et al. Backpropagation algorithms, when it became very common for a multi-layer perceptrons. Lot many papers came into the and then you see that then we also in the Indian context also several papers happen. But the question comes is then why there is a recent resurgence. The reason is very simple, that whenever we, like you see that AI has become a kind of buzzwords and everybody wants to talking about the AI. So when we are talking of an AI, a major component of AI is a machine learning. AI is nothing but like I always like simple. If everywhere you see that, just you want that machines to start thinking. Of course, AI concept of AI started long back in 1950, and then a particular part of AI is a kind of a machine learning, which consists of all the techniques, whatever you would have heard of several techniques, and where like that computers can figure the things out of from the data without being explicitly programmed to do so. And a particular part of like a small subset of machine learning is known as a deep learning, which enables computers to solve more complex problems by using multi-layer neural networks. As simple as that, like that, in AI involves many things. Involves natural language processing, involves reasoning, planning, and several other things. But machine learning is a particular subset of that. But when you talk of a deep learning, the word itself is the deep. So it's as simple as that. Suppose like many of you know that chess game, and you know that in nowadays any good computers like game, chess game, computer inbuilt chess game is able to defeat the players. Reason being is very simple, that it is a very well established procedures of playing in the chess, so machine can do very well. So for that matter, any difficult jobs which had gotten algorithms, suppose any difficult mathematics which had got a clear-cut algorithms can be done with the machine learning. But the idea of deep learning comes into the pictures like when you start sharing the intuitions with the computers, in the sense that you can very well understand that every time you can very well recognize the knock of your known persons. If your parents are knocking, or sometimes you can very well, even though everybody is having webinar or in any particular vehicle, but the horn blown by your parents, you are able to recognize that. But if I'm asking you that, how can you explain, how have you recognized that, then it becomes very difficult and it becomes very long, it becomes very deep, your algorithms become very deep. So to explain such simple concepts, intuitions, which you do on your like on a click of button, like immediately somebody is knocking and you come to know that, okay, mother is knocking or father is knocking or some like well-known persons. But when you start explaining to the machines or anyone else who can develop algorithms, it becomes very, very deep. And that's how the concept of deep learning is there. So the major reason for deep learning is that we want, like we really want that the machines should start thinking of it. And another thing is that now we have enough data, and data is going to be the new oil in the futures. And that's why you all big companies, be it Google, be it Microsoft, be it Facebook, they are the richest. And simultaneously, there is a kind of emergence of like ability of hardware as well. You may be knowing that now we are not talking of CPU, you are not talking of GPU, even if we have started talking of a TPU. And then the open source programs like in Python and all kind of things. So this is and this deep learning is mainly the extensions of artificial neural networks. That the neural networks which you had been using so far had been termed as a shallow neural network, and you keep on adding the layers, hidden layers within that, and that's what you say the deep neural network. And that's the reason that we have started have got a recent resurgence in the artificial neural networks. Of course, you all know this, that neurons you have in central nervous systems, you have trillions of neurons. And so the concepts of neural networks comes from the biological models of the brain, isn't it? And as you know, like the neurons receives impulses from either input cells or other neurons, output of the other neurons, and perform some kind of transformation, some kind of activations and transformation, and it activates to the next layers or transmits outcome to the other neurons or other output cells. Like you know, like the biological neuron, in the sense that you are getting input through dendrites and you are transferring the output through axons. And of course, like any other machine learnings, it learns by examples. It has a capability to generalize that sets for a, suppose if you train with a certain set of data, it can predict a new data sets, it can fit for a new data sets. It's a robust system, so that it's a fault tolerant in the sense that even if there are some missing values, it will be able, you will be able to fit a better model for that. And more importantly, it processes information in parallel at a very high speed and in a distributed manner. Of course, it's a nonlinear, it's non-parametric, means it has a very few prior assumptions. Of course, it is data driven, and it can adapt to the data, so it's a self-adaptive. But from a social science perspective, if you ask, neural networks are interesting because it is giving you an alternative for all traditional statistical models, for either for predictions or for classification. So we see it as a tools like any other statistical tools, any other mathematical tools, which can be used for prediction, which can be used for classification. Similar is the case with the artificial neural networks. Only advantage is that it's non-linear. You know that most of the series which you get in a real life situations are not linear, and then it's non-parametric in the sense that very few a priori assumptions are there. And you know, in social science, assuming certain things that the population follows the normal distributions, all such assumptions are not so simple, and undoubtedly it is a data driven. We all know regression model, and that's why I started with the regression model. In fact, if you are aware, then simply in regression model, what happens is that you try to establish a relationship between dependent variable and independent variable, or sometimes we say explained variables and explanatory variables. So you know very well that y can be any dependent variable, as simple as that the yield of a particular crops, and then you can have several explanatory variables or several independent variables, be it a what is a seed rate, be it a fertilizer dose, be it a kernel size of the kernels, or any biological parameters, any weather parameters, you can keep on including. So these all explanatory variables or so-called independent variables, you can have any number of independent variables. So you just try to map these independent variables with this output, which is nothing but a dependent variable. So here yield depends on several functions, and you try to do that. And as usual, you always put as a kind of an intercept terms, simple straight line equation, y equal to mx plus. So constant terms which you are putting it, which in and then you can very well write these functions as a, like you have a so-called bias or a constant terms, and with certain coefficients with each explanatory variables, the contribution of that explanatory variables, you know the basic linear model. In nutshell, what you get is a dependent variable is a function of your explanatory variables and certain parameters, because it refers to your population. So there are certain parameters. What exactly we are doing is that each time these are the like coefficients, they simply say you is the contribution of this particular thing. And what you do is that you try to sum over it, and then you try to push through any function. And if this function, here is the catch point, this function can be linear, this function can be non-linear. Now when you have got a simple linear function, then you know that y equal to fx equal to x. So whatever is input is there, that you are going to transfer to the as a output. So f is a function of this sum, and since it is an identity function or a linear function, so you are simply providing this as a output. But suppose same function, this, if it is a, here you can do. So this all non-linearity is done through these activation functions. So if you have same thing, but here what happens is the moment you know any nonlinear model, I'm not talking of a neural network, for that matter any nonlinear model, the moment you talk of a nonlinear model, then you know that because of the error functions, nonlinear error functions, what happens that you do not get the closed form solution. I'll explain you through some illustration. So you can have, instead of a coefficients, you have here weights, and some terminology is there, and I am moving from towards the neural networks, the usual or a simple terminology of this multiple linear regression model. So if you look at it, the input is the same, function of x is same, but only here I have deliberately put it a phi. This shows you that, so this means whatever you have, you try to put it in a function so that it can transform your function, transform your input. This function can transform your input, and it can lead to the output which you are desiring, like expected targets, whatever the outputs you have. Because essentially, whatever may be the modeling, as simple linear regression to the neural networks, you are trying to map between input and output. So what you are getting is, you have an input which is in a multiple linear regression model, you have a kind of an explanatory variables or input or independent variables. You add it, like you multiply with its coefficients, which I am saying here, weights, sum over it, add its bias terms, which is a constant intercept, and then you fit into this function. And this is nothing but a activation function. It's nothing but a transforming function. So it transforms your input into a particular output. So because of this activation functions, this is the one way when you are trying to transform your linear model into a non-linear model. Now, when you talk of this activation function or the transform functions, there can be several. One is as simple as you can have a linear function. I have not shown the linear function. So y is equal to fx equal to x, means whatever input you are giving, it is giving you output as a same. But the common activation functions which is being used in artificial neural networks are, say, sigmoidal functions. When you all know, like, and this is known as an S-sub function, very common functions, it's one of the growth functions, and very common functions which is being used in any developmental process, and more importantly to the biological process, which ranges between 0 to 1. So this is a kind of an activation function which is known as a sigmoidal, and this is mathematically also it's very simple, because if you can very well express its why it is so commonly used is because I'm not talking of logistic Gomperz, but many of you maybe would have used logistic model, Gomperz models, and all kind of things. But this S-shaped curves not only represents your phenomena very well, be it a biological phenomena, be it a developmental process of, besides that, mathematically also it becomes very simple, because that its first differentiation can, like first derivatives can be explained as a function of itself. So it becomes very simplified. Whenever you have input between -1 to 1, then you go for hyperbolic tangent functions. But if you look at the different literatures, it is mostly the rectified linear unit, which is nothing but piecewise linear regression model, which is being using rectified linear unit. If you look at it, basically this part for positive variables, for when x is takes positive value, it is same as a simple linear functions. You can see that this means if you give this function any value which is positive, it is more than 0, it will give as such. So if x is positive, it will give you as such x, and if you give anything less than negative, it is going to give you 0. And that's what is the rectified linear. Now question is why it had become so famous. Reason being is that these are the functions which is mostly commonly being used in the, but these functions, when they are used for multiple layers, as I said, that you see input layer and output layer, and you have several layers. When it is used with the several layers, that vanishing gradient problems comes into the picture. So this is taking care of that. It gets rid of that problems, and naturally that leads you to the better convergence, better performance, and all kind of things. Now, if you look at, so essentially, and the end, what you are having is, you are having a input layer, which is you are saying as a set of independent variable or explanatory variable. What you are having is an output layer, which you, as I said, as a dependent variable or a response variable or a predicted variable, and then in between this. So there are two issues because of that. This is able to capture your nonlinear thing. First is, as I said, that you have an activation functions here. Okay, so because of that activation function, you have a flexibility to use the nonlinear. Second thing is that the moment if you remove this hidden layer, which is in between the input layer and output layer, then it is as good as a simple multiple linear regression model. If not, then non-linearity comes because of this hidden layer. And this has a potential, and this is what we are basically, when we are talking of a deep learning, or when you are talking of a deep neural networks, what we are going to do is that we keep on adding several hidden layers in between the input layer and the output layer. And objective is same, that we try to map input with an output. And here you see that each node, we say as a node, each input node 1, 2, 3, all these 3 is connected to this hidden nodes, because it's a fully connected. You can have an as partially connected and all. I'm not going into detail. So that's why it is known as a networks. It is networks, of course artificial, because it is man created. So it's known as a network. So this is how we copied it from biological neurons, and the way our neurons works, our central nervous systems works, in the similar way we try to copy, and in a simplified version, of course, very simplified versions, where each of these nodes is connected to each node of this hidden layers, and you can have several hidden layers also. So here there are several artificial neurons, and they are connected to any specific architectures. We'll talk about the architecture, but idea is simple. We have to map input with an output in a non-linear fashion. Need not have to go into the details of the mathematics, but mathematics is very simple. What we are trying to do is, as I said very clearly, that in that input layer, if you look at this layer, we are not going to here when we are making this. So in this layer there is no activation function, so we get the output only sum of this. So if you look at it, we have simply sum over as many nodes we have. Suppose there are p nodes, 1, 2, 3, like here there are 3 input nodes. So you are adding whatever value you have. We have the weights plus this into its weights plus this into its weights, and you are summing over this. This is what I have shown. Similarly, you can have a different weights with this, different weights with this. So you are simply summing over it, because there is no no activation function at the input layer. Here you do not do any kind of transformation, any kind of activation. So whatever value you have here, you are adding with these weights, you are getting it as sum of these all three with this here. Now, once you get this, then here you see, here we have an activation function. Suppose here I have put a ReLU. You can put a logistic. When you are putting this logistic, suppose this function is a logistic, then whatever ZJ you have got, you put it into the, instead of x, 1 by 1 plus e minus x is the logistic function, you simply put it ZJ. So you have gotten hidden layer. And once you got this hidden layer Hj, again you multiply with its coefficients and put another function, whatever you want. So in fact, what you are going to do is, whatever the input nodes are there, they are multiplied with the corresponding weights, input value, nodes value, multiplied with the corresponding weights, sum over all the input layer, and then transform it. Then put it in certain functions, let it be a kind of a logistic function, and then whatever output you are getting, again you multiply with in this function. So whatever you are getting here, the output, this output, like in as I said, like in a dendron and dendrite and exon examples, and again you sum over all these kind of things and use a whatever functions you want, maybe a simple linear function, simple identity function. This is what we are doing. Now, by doing so, what I am getting? By doing so, what I am getting? I am getting simple objective is that, you see, if I am using this neural network for classification problem, suppose I am using this for a classification problem. Now, this type of AND gate or OR gate, where simply these are the 4 points of a rectangle. So you know that this is 0, 0, this is 0, 1, this is 1, 0, and this is 1, 1. So if you have such certain classification, so that a single straight line you can separate it, it is known as a linearly separable problems, which is usually AND gate and OR gate we are saying it. But when you are talking of exclusive OR gate, what does it mean? It simply means that 0, 0 and 1, 1 are in a different classes. So all this, wherever there is a 0, here also it is 0, 0 point, it is 0, 1 point, it is 1, 0 point, all three are in one classes, and this is in a different classes. Such things can be done, can be separated using the neural network. Using the neural network, reason being is that you have added some hidden layer. Because of these hidden layers, you are able to separate even a non-linear problems. So if you have a glance at the regressions versus the neural networks, simple, that data set which you are using for a regression problems, similar data set can be used for if you are using neural network for a regression problem. Remember, neural networks can be used for three different purposes, because let it be very clear that you can use neural network for regression, you can use neural network for classification, and you can use neural network for time series prediction. And since I am going to talk on a time series prediction, I want to make sure that regression problems and the time series problems are different, which due course of time I'll be telling you. And remember, like, you cannot treat time series problem as a regression problems. Hope you are clear about it. If not, during this course I'll be telling. So data set, if you have for regressions, will be same for neural network. Only thing is that instead of data, you are saying here as a pattern. That's all. So the terminology is changed, but the data is, suppose if you have a yield data, and if you have a set of explanatory variables, as I said, that seed rate, farm, fertilizer dose, plot size, and all kind of things, if you are doing weather parameters and all, you can very well fit a neural network for a regression problems. If you feel that it's not a linearly related, it's not a linear regression, so non-linear regressions is there, you can very well fit to that. Only thing is that terminology is changing. Instead of data, you have started saying of a pattern. And like the regressions, you have got some data sets which you can use for estimation purpose. You are estimating the parameters with the sample data. That is here is known as a training sets. That data set. So suppose if you want to fit a regression, you want to predict a yield for your next plot. So what will happen? You have to have a suppose 50 observations of the plots where your yield data is also there. So, and then the plot which you want to predict, you may not have a yield data, or you have a yield data, then you want to test it. So here what I am saying, so similar way for estimation, what you are saying, it is what we are going to do is we are going to train in terms of a supervised learning. We'll use these terms, we'll discuss these terms a little later. And independent variables corresponds to, as I said, inputs. Instead of independent variable, we are saying inputs, and the coefficients which we use there, we are using weights. And as I said clearly, that if you talk of a single layer feed-forward neural network, that is, there is only one layer. One layer means there is no hidden layer. When I am saying one layer means there is no hidden layer, because that is the main. Then, and if activation function in the output layer is a simple identity function or a linear function, it is as good as a regression model. The advantage here is that since you know that for any linear model, you get a closed form solution. You get a closed form solution. Simple meaning is that for a given data set, for a given method, if all of us you are going to use, we are going to get the same value. Like if you are using a least square estimation technique for a given data sets, you all will going to get the value of beta 0, beta 1, beta are the same. That's the closed form solution. This means you are going to get unique solution. All will be having same. But you know, neural network uses the iterative procedures, or for that matter, any nonlinear model uses iterative procedure. So naturally, it will never be the same. But in the first case, in multiple linear regression model, what happens is that a particular functional forms you have written y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 beta 2 x2 square, or whatever may be, you have written a particular functional form and you are trying to impose that particular functional forms on the data. So outcome is related to a kind of a linear combinations of all them. So here what we have, that you are forcing a functional form. If your data follow that functional form, you are happy. Otherwise, all your analysis or interpretation will go haywire. But the advantage of multiple linear regression is that you can test hypothesis. Why I'm saying is that whenever you have a simple problems, you should not start using the neural networks. If it can be simplified, it can be solved with a simple model, you should go for it, because that has its own advantage. Advantage of you can test the hypothesis, which you cannot do in the neural network. Moreover, in case of neural network, you do not have any idea about the functional form, which type of functional form it is. Here, the data defined, it's a kind of an, as I said, it's a kind of an adaptive. Data define the functional forms. And I have already said it's a kind of a non-linear, non-parametric, self-adaptive. Secondly, it's a universal functional approximator. What does it mean, universal functional approximator? That if with one hidden layer also, with one hidden layer, which has got several nodes in that hidden, you can estimate any nonlinear functions, provided you have an adequate data set. So if you have with that one hidden layer model, like even one, you can approximate any continuous nonlinear functions, provided you have a sufficient data. That's what is the properties of universal functional approximators. And as I said earlier also, that it never reveals the functional relationship. Now, when we talk of architectures, then there are two important architectures. One is feed forward and another is recurrent neural network. When we say feed forward, the word itself says that you are feeding in the forward directions. This means the data or the information flows only in one direction. This means from input layer to the hidden layer to the output layer. It only that there is no feedback, neither from this layer to this layer back, or within the layer also there is no feedback. There is no talking within the layer. Like if suppose this is a hidden layer, even within this they are not talking. Only whatever information you are having here, it will be always forward in the next directions, in the next direction. So it's kind of a feed forward directions. Okay. But in case of recurrent neural network, at least you have one feedback. Either you get from this layer to this layer, or this layer to this, or at least within the layer, you should have a kind of even within the layer hidden states. If you have, So at least one feedback loop has to be there. then it is a recurrent neural network. And naturally, once you have, mostly now when we are talking of this, time series, mostly we are talking of recurrent neural network in context of deep neural network. Initially, of course, we use this feed-forward neural network, and I'll explain you that how we have tried to study the pattern, historical pattern in case of a time series, because you know that in time series, basically you try to analyze the, try to fit the, analyze the pattern of historical data, and you try to extrapolate that pattern. That's the same thing we'll be doing, and how we can do with the feed forward neural network, and how we are doing with recurrent neural networks. Now, as I said, when you are talking of estimation, when you are talking of a training in that, then you have three clear-cut methods for. So one is supervised learning. Learning, you either I'm saying learning or I'm saying training, it's one or the same. So estimation, so here first thing is case of a supervised learning. When you have a level data, this means you know that this is data one, number 2, you have a level data, isn't it? Like a plot level data. So you know that this is a first plot data, second plot data, and moreover, you have an output, in the sense that you are learning with a teachers. Learning with the teachers in the sense that you, for a given input, what will be the output is given over here, so that you know that when you are predicting, you know that whether you are going right or wrong. So it is supervised. Name itself says it is a kind of there is a supervision, and always a age-old way of explaining is that whenever you are teaching your younger one for single initially in the alphabet, so the way you are teaching the alphabet, in fact, if you consider your younger one as a kind of systems, then what you do is that when you say that, you say A and you say ah, so you keep on, whatever output he is giving, whatever that your younger one is saying, you see that how much wrong he is going in, and then you keep on repeating it till it comes under your tolerable limit. If you feel no, it's fine, now this much error, you will improve over time, but no need to bother about. So when it is under the tolerable limits, so this means when I'm saying a level data, means for each input layer I should have an output layer. So plot one, you have a kind of explanatory variables, and then it's you have, and here that is what is known as a supervised learning. This means you are learning under the guidance of teachers, and you are able to know that how much wrong you have gone, error you can make. But in case of unsupervised learning, basically many a times in the statistics, discriminant functions we say as a supervised learning. But unsupervised learning is a kind of a cluster, of course, I'm not talking of a k-means cluster, so you do not have any number in that on its own. So where you do not have a level or output, you do not have an yield output, you do not have a dependent variable. So suppose if you have a kind of germ plasm data, you have a say 1000 germ plasm data, and you want to cluster them like in clustering. So that also you can use, and you learn on its own, and then you try to find the hidden structure depending upon the kind of algorithms you are using. So you are learning by self. We generally say that suppose a child is there and somehow he has touched the essence sticks and he is getting burned. So he understood that whenever something is glowing red, it can hurt him. Of course, he may get misclassification be there. Sometimes he may be fearing to touch the red apple, but this is how he learns. So if you classify them, and then if some novel genotypes is coming, then it will, if it is not coming in any clusters, then that is what is the novelty can be detected. So you are talking of unsupervised learning, which can find its pattern on its own, and then accordingly it is being classifying it like a cluster. Reinforced learning, initially it was not much used, but this is what is mostly being used in all the games which you are seeing, and where basically as such it it's the only that you don't have a teachers. You learn from the environment, but you are being rewarded or penalized. Unlike the unsupervised learning, you do not have any reward or penalized. Here, unlike supervised learning, you do not have a teacher. But if you do some mistakes, anything, then you are being penalized or you are being rewarded. So here you learn via experience or you learn from the environment. And this is what most of the places is being used as a Q learning or a game playing, etc. So exactly what it does is as simple as multiple linear regression model. Suppose if you feel that a wage, hourly wage or a worker's productivity is a function of year of education, formal education, and its experience, then workforce experience, then you can very well consider this education as one of the explanatory variables and experience as another explanatory, and you are trying to have a weight. Now, if you see this as an input layer, this as an output layer, so you know that for given level of education, for given level of experience, you have certain weight because you have a level data, isn't it? You have an. Now, what you can do is that you can fit this with this, multiply with these weights and these weights, and you are getting some output. Here you can transform it and you can output it, and then you can compare it. So this is what you are going to get. You are going to get an output, predicted value, and then you have a target value. And you know very well that if you simply sum over the error terms, you plus error terms and minus error terms, that's why you are going to have a non-negative quantity. It's a kind of the point which is going to be always a non-negative. You are squaring that error terms, and so this is what you are minimizing this error terms. Now, when you are trying to this, what happens is that where is the problem in the sense? You see, simple quadratic functions if you have and you have a global optimum, this is not an issue, and this is what you generally getting in a kind of a linear model where you have a only a global method. But in case of a non-linear model, what happens is in case of a non-linear model, simple error functions, if you are plotting with a single parameters, I'm talking of, I'm suppose a schematic diagrams of the error function with a single parameter, W is a parameter. Now, if you get this kind of a function, now you see here A is a local minimum, B is a local maximum, C is a saddle point, while D only is the global minimum. So what I'm trying to explain is that this is the difference between the linear and a non-linear model. Like when you have a non-linear model and even with simple one parameters, I'm trying to have a, so you have non-linear error surface. Now in this error surface, your algorithms may get stuck here itself because this A point, which is a local minima, will consider as a global minimum, and your gradient, like we'll talk about the gradient distance that optimization technique which you are using, maybe 0, and it will stuck here. It may be a saddle point where your error surface is almost the flat, so it may stuck over there, but you are looking for a, you need to look for a global minimum. And how you are doing it, it's the name itself, the gradient. So you are just taking the differentiation. This is a gradient and it is a steepest descent or gradient descent. What you are doing is that wherever there is a negative, you are coming down this, and wherever there is a positive, you are going up. Now, point here is that if you use this kind of the terms learning rates, like how you are updating your weights. Now, if you are updating very fast, then it will oscillates between these 2 points. You see that very high learning rates, how is it behaving? So if you have a very high learning rate, it will oscillates between these 2 points. Again, it is going to miss the global optimum. And if you have got a very low learning rates, naturally what will happen that it may be so slow that it will never convert. And that's the problem with this type of model. So there is several kind of developments, and of course here we generally try to talk about the momentum, like momentum, so that how so which will add inertia to the, so whenever there is a kind of acute, like very sharp declines, it will cancel out those oscillations and it will not move much. So you can have this kind of optimization technique. So what I'm not going to details because most of these things are being done by the software. So you need not have to worry about it. But you must understand that the problem in the sense that why in case of nonlinear model, or for that matter, why in case of neural networks, you generally it's becoming difficult, and why you do not get a closed form solution. I just said in the beginning that you do not get a closed form solution, you do not get a unique solution, you do not get a like for a given data set. So when you are fitting a neural networks, all of you are not getting the same weights, same coefficients, while when you are fitting a simple linear regression model, you all are getting it. So that you have to understand. Now, so these are the so how are you going to do this? Basically what happens is that in like you are fitting, so when you are saying of a gradient descent, you are fitting line by line, you have a pole epoch. Sometimes you can have in a batch mode, like you can only part of it, suppose 100 observations are, you can go with the 10 stochastic gradient descent kind of things. So in nutshell, what you are getting is you have input vector, you use the you are outputting it certain things, you get some, you have certain target which is already available with this y, and whatever difference is there, that is back propagated to the model to adjust the weight. And so these are the this is the back propagation algorithms, and this is what is a commonly used, which has been as I said was given by Rumelhart et al. In 1986, which can be useful for multiple multi-layer perceptrons. Then initially, like any nonlinear model, we try to initialize the weight to a small random variables, and these are the things which you can use like in functions, that how you, why are you doing it. Then you choose a pattern, means you choose a data, propagate it forward, compute the output errors, come back, compute, then after output errors you compute this hidden layer, and then compute the local gradients through backward computations, and this you do forward and backward, and that's how you are doing it. Now, what are the issues when you are coming to such kind of things? One is overfitting. Overfitting in the sense that if you have less number of data, you are going to have an underfit. This is an optimal fit. And overfitting means you are just memorizing the data. Memorizing the data in the sense that if suppose you have simple polynomial, you are putting it, and if you are supposed to fitting a polynomial of order 7, and if you have only 7 data, you can fit it, but you can see that coefficients are very large. So sensitivity analysis, if you are doing even a single observations you are changing, it is missing. So for to take care of this, what we do is that whole data set, suppose you have 100 data sets, then you divide it into 3 parts when you are doing a modeling, which I am going to talk. And you have a training data set and you have a testing data set, and you can see that your testing data set had started, error has started increasing, but in training data set it keep on decreasing. It is something like something like R square and adjusted R square, isn't it? So here you see this is because like R square, it will always be keep on increasing. So training set error terms is always decreasing, but here, so this is the point. At this point, you will have to stop. Otherwise, you are leading towards this overfitting. So whenever you try to build the neural networks for any applications, there are few things which you need to look. One is that you need to select the variables for any regression problem, any time series problem. You have to of course in time series univariate you have to select the lag value, but you select the variable selection, then you go for data collection, and then you go for data pre-processing. This is a very important step. Many a times it is being done automatically, but you need to do on your own, because this will take care of even the curse of dimensionality as well as this. And then you try to partition the samples. You should have a training set, you should have a testing set, and you should have a validation set. And then of course you try to have all neural network on how many input layer are how many hidden nodes, how many hidden layers, how many hidden nodes, and all kind of things, and which kind of evaluation criteria you are trying to do, because there will be an in sample performance, there will be out of the sample performance, and then you try to go for a neural network of training. And there are many questions which I have already said over this. Now when we try to talk about price forecasting, basically you have one is like a statistical models. In again a statistical model, you talk of a linear model like ARIMA, and you talk of a non-linear model like threshold autoregressives or a star model. And when you talk of an AI model or so-called like machine learning models, in AI models, you have a machine learning like artificial neural network, support vector machines, and I'm not talking of a hybrid. And in deep learning, you can talk of deep neural networks, and in recurrent, or you have an LSTM sense, you have a CNN and all kind of things. Now, since we are going to talk about the price forecasting, let us look at that, how I am going to fit. If you are given a data set, how are you going to fit? So the moment you have an original time series data, remember, we have to do data processing. Data pre-processing, when I'm saying, you have a choice. One is you go for a detrending, you go for a differencing, or you go for a transformation. Most of the times, you know that we do detrending, differencing, because detrending is done whenever you have a deterministic trend. If there is a stochastic trend, then we should go for a differencing. And most of the times when I'm writing transformation, why I'm writing is that each observation, most of the times you see that we generally take the log. Why we take log is because if you difference two observations while differencing, if you take the log and then you difference it, what you are getting is a relative change. Like if x1 and x0 are a positive quantity, log x1 minus x0 can be approximated to the kind of a proportional change, and you can multiply it and you can talk in terms of a percentage. That's the advantage of taking log of that. And then, as I said, the data need to be divided into the training set, validation and testing. These two words are interchangeably used in the literature. So you can have training, testing, and validation. The purpose is that, like, you have a training data set, you should have another data sets which will help you. If you look at it, which will help you to remove this overfitting condition. That's it. And third is that unseen part. Simply say that third part is an unseen part which you want to have a kind of evaluation measures like root mean square error, mean absolute error. So there are two parts. You see, one data set, training data set, which you have already seen. Your model has already seen. Naturally, that is going to perform better. That is in sample performance. That is going to be in sample performance. This is the illustration which I'm going to do with this R package, not with the MATLAB or not with the Python, with the R package. So I'll be using two data sets. One is Sunspot data set, which is well-known data set in the literatures. Another is that monthly soybean oil data set. Sunspot data is already there in the R software. And for this, you can use this pink sheet, World Bank commodity price data set. And here you see that we have done the plot of what we are seeing is that data over time plot which we are saying, and then we have done this stationarity test, we have done this nonlinearity test, we have tried to take a clue from ACF, PSF, and then we have used these functions which I'll come again, and that's how we have predicted this part in this here, this 30 observations. Here we are predicting the 12 observations. I'm going to stop for 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm not going to leave this. I just want to know that I have gone hurriedly, okay, and this illustration part again I have gone. This is what I'm going to do with an R software. If you have any query, I'll try to answer those queries, or I'll try to share some of my experience, and then I'll come back to it. I'm asking only to those people who are still attending it, and if now, like everything had an advantage and disadvantage. So there are disadvantages of online, but then you have an advantage, isn't it? You are sitting at buying your vegetables and then attending your class. So that kind of things will be going. So first of all, straight questions. Do you have any questions? Let me tell you the same things which I generally tell to my students. Yes, from Bisita, I got no questions, sir, undoubtedly. So there are two situations, Bisita. One is, of course, no, sir, I know. So there are two situations. First situation is that you have understood everything. excellent situation. Another you have not understood anything. But I am not that optimistic. I am not that pessimistic. I am very sure if I have talked 1 hour, you would have understood some of the things. If you have understood everything, that also is a questionable on my own, because even I have not understood completely to it. So probably you should have some questions. Okay. If not, if I know that already in chat box you have said that no, everything is fine. You just finish the class and that's the more. Okay, you want to implement it and then you want to have a query. Okay, good. So far you do not have any questions. Okay, let me ask another query, because anyway 5 minutes I'll be there and that, isn't it? Because organizer have not arranged the tea, so at least I'll have to drink the water. So no worry. You see, I went little fast. I know that because I wanted to spend some time on the practicals, because when I joined, I think in chat, Dr. Vikas was writing that it was more of a theoretical nature. Of course, I always believe that if you are clear about theory, you can very well use the apply, like, because software's running is not going to be a big deal. In fact, rather it is disastrous when you start, like there are many wizard in that. Simply if you write NNITAR and in the your series, you will get a neural network. So this is not a big deal. One line command, you get a neural network. The point is what you are trying to optimize. So now my question is that in
Hello,
any
excuse
one
me,
of
sir.
you have, yes.
Sir, what is the difference between strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence?
A strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence. This is the question.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get in what context you are saying.
Artificial intelligence, sir, generally, if we get the proper result, if we get the significant value, that means a strong artificial intelligence, or somewhat we say that we didn't get the significant
You are
result.
trying to say accuracy of the like system. If you get more accurate, it is a strong. This is what you are saying. If it is less accurate, because you see, artificial intelligence, or you are saying machine learning, anything, it is more of a prediction machine, isn't it? Everything what you are doing is a prediction machine. Even if like if you would have used the Alexa or any such Google AI or anything, what you are saying, if you are simply asking what is the like capital of India, then that machine first trying to predict every words what you have uttered, what is the capital. So that machine is predicting every words which I have uttered, try to understand that, and then it is search for it, and then again it is giving you the answer. So it's a more of a prediction machine. And how accurate are your predictions are, and that's why you see that when you bring such kind of Alexa or all initially, or now it is well trained, it is able to understand all the accents, Indian accents. But initially, if you look at it, many a times our accents, it was not able to catch the accents. These are because of the lack of the training. So prediction accuracy was less because it has trained less data. That is what you are meaning, Sandeep?
Yes, sir. But I think that suppose we are using the resource data, may artificial intelligence gives the proper result or accurate result, or is some data is missing? That means we can say that it's a weak type of the artificial intelligence, or we can't use the resource data.
I didn't get what you are saying. You have a resource data, means
Suppose, sir, we take the time series data. So we consider time series data is our resource data. So by using this time series data, suppose we get the accurate result. So that means strong artificial intelligence, or suppose most of the time we didn't get the proper data or the resource data. Like, so suppose from the APMC's market, if we want to collect the data on the prices, and mostly the data of the prices for the 1 or 2 years is missing. So most of the people, they adjust that prices. So in that case, if we run the artificial variable, sir, so that means a weak artificial intelligence. I don't know, sir, what is the difference between the strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence. That's why I'm asking, sir.
No,
I heard that these terminologies most of time, strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence, but I didn't understand what is the meaning of these two terminologies.
no, I think Dr. Vikas wrote like a strong AI can successfully imitate human intelligence and is at the core of the advanced robotics. Weak AI can only predict a specific characteristics that resemble human intelligence. Maybe it is like for me, simple is that like if you are trying to predict certain things, I use like AI as a prediction machine, and if your accuracy is less, you are weak in the sense that somewhere in your optimization part, when you are optimizing your weights of that system, weights of the model, somewhere something is like still like it is not like better optimization. I'll say no, because 100% optimization, 100% prediction is almost not sure. So, and whenever you have like less, but probably I think it may be somewhere defined in the literature. Is it because like is it defined somewhere in the literature?
Dr. Girish, it's me actually.
Okay.
You see, who asked this question? Dr. Sandeep, I think.
Yes, sir.
So strong AI and weak AI, strong AI, these, as Dr. Girish has told, there is no borderline kind of thing which can tell, okay, from this onwards, it is all strong, and from this below, all are weak. So nowadays, so much literature is available, you can even refer to them also. As such, ultimate aim of AI is to build those machines, robotics machines, like which are exactly like humans. And you may be knowing, like there are certain machines which have been made, which try to mimic the human behavior. So when we are integrating all such techniques, whichever are available, whether it is computer visioning, whether it is like ANN, deep learning, or SVM, or whatever things are available, utilizing all of them, when we completely just resemble human intelligence, it becomes strong AI. All others comes under weak AI. So our prediction task, since here we are looking for only specific characteristics of human intelligence, that is prediction. Like you look at data and you try to make some judgment, okay, tomorrow this is going to happen. Or today class was not there, yesterday class was not there, so tomorrow also class will not be there. So here only specific characteristics of human behavior we are trying to predict, not each and every behavior. So it comes under weak category. When your machine or robot is like this, like you saw in that, what was it, Ravan, that movie. So that was supposed to have exactly human-like behavior. So that was considered as strong AI. So these terms have been devised so far, but right now, not many examples you will find for strong AI, even though some efforts have been there. I do not remember the name. They have made some robot, like in, I think, UAE or somewhere, so which resembles human intelligence, which can answer any question. So that comes under a strong AI, not otherwise. So all algorithms which we are telling, only specific characteristics. So that will be weak. And you know, it depends on our notion. What Dr. Girish is telling is correct. According to him, okay, whichever algorithm is giving you good accuracy, so it comes under strong accurately algorithm. But literature mein AI terms is classified like this, strong and weak.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Okay. Of course, in neural networks, generally we say shallow neural networks when only one hidden layers are there. When you have several hidden layers, you say deep neural networks. That's how we define in.
Yeah, we are proceeding, even other algorithms, we are proceeding towards more and more accuracy, but still here only like time series. Okay, time series prediction we are making accurate. So Since only one specific characteristics we are looking at, that's why it is called VKI. Not each and every characteristics of human being we have modeled here.
Moreover, emotions and all those things are not
Yes,
being.
yes. Right now we are
modeled
not
in
in
this
that position, so that's why it is V.
So simply numbers we are modeling. So in that case, it may be a VKI. When we like sentiments of the traders and everything, we will be able to model 100%, like sentiments of the consumers, sentiments of the traders, markets, and all players, all stakeholders, all those things. So probably that may be in a strong AI. Thank you, Sandeep.
Sir, sorry, sir. I have another question, sir.
Sure, sure.
Sir, generally this artificial intelligence techniques, artificial neural network, generally we are using this all techniques for forecasting the prices. Sir, is it possible to use these all techniques for improving the agricultural productivity?
What agriculture productivity is a function of what? How can you improve the agriculture productivity? What are the means to improve the agriculture productivity?
That means, sir, suppose if the maybe suppose the farmer get 10 quintals of the cotton from 1 hectare area, and he want to improve his productivity up to 14 or 15 quintals. So in that case, can we use this artificial intelligence for giving him a right decision, or the allocations of the inputs, allocations of the area? Such type of the things can we do with the help of this artificial intelligence?
Several things. You see, one thing is that to start with, what are the means for increasing the productivity? There are what you say, that optimization of resources, which is one thing. Another thing is a price instrument. If you get the correct price, that is another thing. So what you are seeing is that, like yesterday also Prime Minister had given a kind of 100 Kisan drones and all kind of things. So when you are developing such robots, either by minimization of the labor shortage, or some sort of irrigations, if you sensor based irrigations, all these places, basically all these leads to this increasing the productivity. Productivity per se is a factors of, suppose quality seeds you are giving, suppose if you are applying chemicals, and suppose they are in the fields, incidence is only in certain patches. If you precisely, this is what is precision agriculture, precisely putting. So in part of a precision agriculture also is a machine learning, it's an AI only, isn't it? So you can improve this productivity in any way. One is, you can, suppose if you can use the models and you can predict exact demand and supply side, so that farmers are always getting a remunerative price. That's again a kind of, suppose if you can optimize the resources, suppose water's actual level of water, like suppose drip irrigations, if you are doing it a kind of a sensor based only to those plants where, so all these optimizations are being done. Like basically whatever you are talking of, basically in nutshell I'll say that the precision agriculture is one means of improving the productivity, and that is being governed by nothing but the AI and ML.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Of course, I wanted to have some questions on ANN, but anyway, good. So what I'll do is that I have done the illustrations. Instead of that, I'll directly go to the now R package, and I'll try to show you the illustrations. Is it okay? Dilip, my slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Slide.
That R package is visible.
R package. Yes, sir.
I'm directly going for the illustration. So you all know this R packages, because I think certainly someone would have already covered this. So I'm not going to talk about this R package.
Dr. Girish, will you be able to give them the small code which they can run on their own?
Yes.
So if possible, you can just share that, and we'll share with them so that they can try like how ANN function and all.
Okay, no issue. So as simple as that, like you may be knowing this all four parts of a single screen. And what I am going to do is simple. So, you know, for any things, if you want to do, you need to load certain packages. I have loaded, these are the packages. If you see, just a function was used to install all the packages if it is not there. So you see the time series, forecast, neural net, ISLR, mass, ggplot2, time date, all are true, means all these packages have been loaded by this. Now, since Madam has told to share, you see what I am going to do. So if you look at it, the heading is artificial neural network for time series data. So naturally, we are going to call, these are the forecasts, then time series, already it is installed, so I am just calling those, time date. Now, if you look at it, that this sunspot data is already there in the R package, so I need not have to read or write. I'll show you that when I'll be using my own data. So simply xt, if you look at the variable assigned to that data set. So sunspot.year data is being used as an xt. If you are running this figure, this means you can see here that you have got a xt data. Okay. Once you got this xt data, then you would like to see that whether just head xt data means first few observations you are trying to see. So you are getting it, first few observations you are getting it here. And now if you want to look that whether what is the class of data, whether like the data is in time series format or not, kind of things. If you are using this class.xt, you get an output as like, you get an output that it is a time series data. Now once you get the data, you have few things to do. The first thing is that I always believe that whenever you get any data series, suppose, of course I am talking of univariate time series. Okay, I'm talking of univariate time series. So whenever you get the data, first thing is that you try to calculate the descriptives of the data. When I'm talking of a descriptives of the data, it simply means measures of central tendency and dispersions, because that's how data is being described. So this, if you look at this summary of this xt, you are seeing that you have got all your measures of central tendency, that what is the minimum value, what is the maximum value, what is the mean, what is the median, first quartile, third quartile, all kind of. So you get
जी गलत नंबर लग गया शायद, मैं दिलीप हूं सर.
So what I am trying
हाँ वही तो, इधर मैं कंप्लेन किया हूं लेकिन कोई सुन ही नहीं रहा है.
दिलीप जी
ठीक है, फिर से लगा ऐसा मैं नहीं उठाऊंगा.
Hello, Dilip ji.
दिलीप जी please mute your phone.
So what happens is that, like, so the first thing, whenever you get the data, it's not true for time series, let it be true for any data analysis. Most of the times you jump to the analysis, you don't jump to that. First try to know the data, try to describe the data. The way when I came, I was being introduced, or I should have introduced myself, whatever way it is. So you try to get the descriptives of the data which can statistics which can describe the data. And that is what I try to get a summary of that. And then that gives me the measures of central tendency. And once you know the central tendency are done, then you go for measures of dispersion. So I started calculating what is the standard deviation of the data, what is the skewness of the data, and what is the kurtosis of the data. Remember one thing, if you know the first 4 moments of the data, you know anything and everything of the data. You need not have to go for nth moment. Remember that if you have a measures of central tendency, this means if you have arithmetic mean, geometric mean, harmonic mean, median, mode, whatever the way appropriate the data, you are able to explain the central tendency. Next step is you go for obtaining the measures of dispersion, and one of the important measures of dispersion is the variance, and the square root of that is the standard deviation. So central tendency means first order moments, dispersion means second order moment, and then you see that what is the skewness of the data, whether it is positively skewed or negatively skewed, or it is asymmetric. Because remember, like most of the data which you are using it like in a theoretically it's a normal data which is going to be symmetric data. So whether your data is a positively skewed or negatively skewed. And then the fourth and the last important measures for understanding the data is kurtosis, whether it's a platykurtic or a mesokurtic or a leptokurtic. If for a given data set, if you know all these three things, you know anything and everything about that. That is what I'm trying to say. Once you have got the descriptives of the data, so my suggestions will be get the data, get the descriptives of the data, measures of central tendency, dispersion, skewness, and kurtosis. The second thing is you try to plot the data. And you see, remember, you are using the time series data. This means data taken over time. Remember, there are three types of data. You have got a cross-sectional data, you have got a time series data, and you have got a panel data. I'm not going to talk about this while discussion, it may appear into it, but time series data means data taken over time. And remember that is on a regular interval of time. It can be equal interval, it can be an unequal interval. Remember, but what we generally deal with is a discrete time series data. It's not a continuous time series data like electrocard, ECG, or something like that. It's a discrete time series data. So first thing is that you try to plot the data in the sense that data over time. Plot xt functions I'm using, just I am going to have a time plot. Okay. So if you look at this time sunspot data, you see this is the kind of data which you have got. Here it clearly gives you a kind of that whether data has got any stationarity, non-stationarity, linearity, non-linearity, and all kind of things. Remember, if you get a linear data, if you get a stationary data, no need to jump to the artificial neural network. Now, if you see this time plot, here itself you can see that the average is not going to is not increasing over time. So at least it is non-stationary in terms of a mean. Fluctuations are there, but still variance also is not expected, and just to test it statistically. So this means your time plot should be able to tell you very clearly that whether there is a non-stationarity in terms of a mean or variance or both. So mean, when on an average, like average value is increasing either in an increasing direction or in a decreasing direction. Second, is there variability or fluctuations in it? To test it statistically, you can use many tests, but here I have used augmented Dickey-Fuller test. And what you can see that this test is basically p-value is very low, so you reject H0, and if you reject H0, this means here the alternative hypothesis is going to be stationary. I'm not going into the details of those tests because you have got already several lectures on that. Now, second thing is that if you want to fit the NN model, you must ensure that data is nonlinear in nature, and for that you have to fit one of the functions I have fitted is a BDS function, and you can see that and I'll come back to my illustrations where you have seen that I have shown it that it is a nonlinear data. Of course, you can also test for a nonlinearity, and you can see that all these codes here already in the comments I have written this. The first test I'm doing for all these things like central tendency, standard deviation, skewness, kurtosis, test of stationarity, test of linearity, test for normality. Then if you deliberately I'm showing all these kind of things, then what you can do is you can try to plot autocorrelation function. You can try to plot partial autocorrelation function. It is simply same like in a correlations on partial correlation. So remember these are all only gives you the linear relationship. I know I am going for an I am going to identify the non-linear relationship. It will simply give me some hints. It is not going to give me the kind. So I am not saying that you can take help from them, but remember, like, and that's the reason that one suggestions I want to give, that many of people I have seen that they use non-linear times, they use ANN for time series, and then when they describe it, they simply describes the regression type of neural networks where X1, X2 are different. But remember, even if you are using feed forward neural network, even if you are using MLP, here the input nodes should not be X1, X2, because you do not have an X2, you have only Y. You do not have any auxiliary information in this case. So it will be the lagged value of Y. Suppose it's a monthly data, 1 month lag, 2 month lag, 3 month lag, 4 month lag. And that is what you are getting in autocorrelation, isn't it? Correlation with itself at different lags. Fine. So I think these concepts should be very clear. So most of the times I see that even if you fit with your given software, what you do, the mistakes is that while you're illustrating, you forget, you do not differentiate that the problems which can be, because you see regression analysis cannot be used as such for a time series data, because one of the basic assumptions of the regressions are errors are, if not independent, they are uncorrelated. And that is the basic problems of the time series data, when data are auto-correlated in nature. And that's why you get a time series analysis course different from the regression analysis course. So you try to fit into it. Once you have done ACF and PCF, I am not talking more now, then you just see that what is the length of the data. If you click on the length of XT, you see that you have got 289 data. If you have got 289 data, then you have to divide the data into training and testing sets. And now when you are going for this, so what I have done is that this Y0, which is a training set, that is for XT data, you are taking from 1 to 259, and the rest you are 30 observations, I am going to predict it. So this Y0, now I have to isolate, like this, I have to partition this data into two parts. So I am parting into training and testing. I am not doing validations because unknown sources. So you are getting a training data set. You are getting a testing data set. So you have Y0, you have Z0. So you have a training data set, you have a testing data set. As I said, you should do in the three-way partitions: training, testing, and validation data sets. Then only you can get into it. Now, when you are fitting ANN, there are, like in R package and all, you know that there are several packages which you can use for this. I am using the forecast package, which is developed by Rob Hindman, one of the most important personality in time series forecasting. So I am using that, and in that there is a function known as NN-nitar, and you can always go into the packages. You can always go into the help file. You can see any things like NN-nitar, so neural networks for time series forecast, a feed forward network with single hidden layer. So here hidden layer is already fixed. They will not ask for how many hidden layers. So it is something like you are using a toy camera. Toy camera, like any good photographers will not love to use your toy camera. So good for people like who do not know photography, but it's very bad for a good photographer. And that's why we generally encourage people to use a software like MATLAB or anything else where you can do your own coding. So you have a single hidden layer, and of course, why? The reason is very simple. That, as I have said, it's a universal function approximator. So you can approximate any continuous linear function with a single hidden layer if you have got the catch is if you have got a sufficient data point. So when you are fitting ANN, so you are using this NN-nitar function, and in this NN-nitar function, if you see, even if you are seeing NN-nitar, if you are just putting NN-nitar and you are giving a Y0, you will get some output. Garbage in, garbage out, no dot matter. But besides that, what you are trying to being asked is Like if you have used autoregressive of order P, that P lag. So this P is nothing but a lag. Like how many lags you are going on, like 10 months lag if you are aging. Like if you would have fitted a regression or the ARIMA model, then you know first part of ARIMA is autoregressive and then last part is moving average, and the in between is an integrated part. So you are using autoregressive, regressing on itself. So first 10 lags are being used as an input, isn't it? So lag of 10, so is giving, so y minus 10, y minus 9, this will predict a y11. So 10 lags is being used, and for here in this package, for what I kind of I am not using any seasonality, and then I am using in that hidden layer is fine, that is fixed, only one hidden layer. But how many nodes in that hidden layer? So I am doing this 6. As I said, if you just simply put nn itar y0, you will get an output. There is no doubt about that. But we do some kind of experimentations. We can keep on changing. We can get a help from ACF and PCF, or if you can keep on changing this number of time delay input, because you are trying to recall the past patterns. So you are trying to have kind of similarly, like in a linear model, how you are using this autocorrelation function, and then how many hidden nodes. So here this, and what is this repeat is 30, because you see one time you are doing, and as I said, you do not have a kind of a closed form solution. So every time if you repeat means 30 repeats. This means every time it will start with a different initial value. So it will give a different result, and then finally it will add up, so that it should not be varying next time when if you really optimize it. If you have really optimized it, then your data, like your results, should not be varying much with second time when you are running, third time when you are running it. And so this is what you are trying to fit. Once you have fitted it, this means you have got fit of y0. Now if you look at the fit of y0, then you have got all the details of the y0. You see here already it is written, it is neural networks autoregressive models, which has got 10. If you look at 10, so this is 10 is the time delay, that is 10 lag, and 6 is because only this is the two parameters you have. Input layer is, you have said in input the nodes will be 10 nodes, and then in the output it is fixed that you are only outputting one, because it is a single step, and then multiple steps is being done by iteration process. So it's not like if I am predicting 30 points, so it's not 30 outputs. I am predicting only one, and every time that first output will again come as a lag, and kind of iterations will be doing it. So you have got 10 delay, 10 lag, and then 6 hidden nodes, and all these things are being given. Whatever we have fixed, that repeats is 30, and all other things are null because we have not put anything. And if you look at this, so 30 networks they have run, and what is that networks? 10, 6, 1. This means 10 is input nodes, 6 is hidden nodes because only one hidden layer, and 1 is output node. And you know that there are going to be 73 weights, because simple, 10 into 6 is 60, and plus 6 into 1 is 66, plus 7 bias, that is 73 weights. Now you can fit a accuracy. Now all this accuracy with the testing data out of the sample performance, because this data I have not used for training purposes. So mean error or root mean square error, mean absolute error, mean percentage error, all these things are there. Now once we have fitted, we can forecast it. So for forecasting, what I am doing is fcast1 predicting. I am using the prediction function, and function is already fitted into fit.ay. And what is the horizon I am predicting? I am predicting for 30 observations, future 30 observations I am predicting it. And then what I am getting is fcast1, and fcast1 here we do not have a confidence interval, but I am just taking up that only the mean value of that, and these are the my 30 predictions. Now if I am seeing that how well I have, just you try to plot that, and you see that this was the kind of a series, and this was the 30 predictions we have done, and this is what is. Now if you look at it, that what is your its RMSE. You can calculate this. So this is much is the RMSE. If you can calculate that this is the mean absolute percentage error, you can see that it is a mean absolute deviation, different kind of. Just quickly, if you want to fit with the same data sets, suppose even if you know that it's a nonlinear model, you should not fit a linear model, but suppose for comparison purpose you are fitting an ARIMA. So simply if you are fitting ARIMA with an auto ARIMA, like it does it on like a wizard kind of thing, and you are fitting an ARIMA, and if you the models which you have fitted it, now function is fit dot y1, and now you can see that what it had fitted. It had fitted AR2 order of autoregressive of order 2, and it is already a stationary. So the integrations is like order of differencing is 0. I hope you know this, and moving average of order 1. So you have got AR2 integrations, because stationarity, if you see, it is already a stationary, so there is no point of differencing. So I integration, like how many times it has to be difference to get stationary, and then moving average is 1. So this AR2 coefficients, AR1, AR2 coefficient and moving average coefficients are there, and then its standard error are there, and you have got AIC, BIC and all. They would have already calculated several, and they would have taken the minimum AIC criteria. And then if you look at its accuracy, you have got mean absolute, RMSE and all kind of things. Similarly, you can again take its prediction. Here I am predicting with the forecast functions, and then if you look at it, you have got F2. What is this? This is the 30 forecast. You can very well plot this. Okay, and here since it is being plotted with the confidence interval, you can see that confidence interval is also there. Now if you see this plot, if you see this plot, it is taking the shapes the way when you are seeing same thing with the neural network. You see that it's coming, but now you know very well the drawbacks of the ARIMA, and now it is almost taking the average of that value, and it is almost a kind of the same value. So, and similarly, of course, you can use all its RMSE and all, and you can compare it just for your own satisfaction. Fine. Only for RMSE. Sorry, no need to see the another example. Hope I am a bit clear now. Oh, then also there is no answer. Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Mohan. At least out of 65, if I'm getting yes, one yes, as a statistician, I'm quite satisfied, because I don't expect more than 10%. So already, oh, great, Sandeep. 4 more yes I have to have, so that I can be 10% and I'll be happy, man. Thank you. 3 more. Otherwise, organizer will think that I have not convinced even 10% people. So good part is that my population size is already small. Already, say almost 40 people have left, or say 20 people. So 1/3 had left. So it is kind of an election, like how much polling has been done. So since I have to get 10% of 65, oh, good. Then I will consider Dr. Suresh as a kind of 3-4. So I am done with that. So do you have any questions? Like, have you seen that? Are you able to appreciate the way neural network is able to model a non-linear model? It was not a non-stationary, but it was a non-linear series, and it was able to model it. Similar exercise I can do with a soybean data, depending upon your but what I want is that even 1 or 2 people, if you have really used it, or if you want to use, you just ask me the basic questions, because I want to tell you that there are few mistakes which you generally do it. The mistake number 1, which I said, that you are always predicting a time series model and then explaining in the papers as a kind of a regression networks used for a regression problem. That mistake, please don't do it. Second thing is that you most of the times you do not you use like NN-niter of a series. Rather, you try to experiment with the parameters. like try to experiment with the different lag of this, with lag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you see that how the things are moving. So it takes time. You will have to, then again you also move with the because you do not have a choice to move the hidden layer. So layer is only one, and yes, you can get a, like if you have a sufficient. Remember, don't use this ANN with a time series data set of 20 or 30 or kind of things. Such kind of things you don't do it, because you know that even for ARIMA, it is being said that you should have at least 50 observations. So in that case, I always say that you should have a sufficient observations, and you can always compare with that. At least a control can be your ARIMA model. So you can see that how good you are at the ARIMA model. And plotting, if you look at my slides, when I have tried to plot this sunspot data, and you see that there is no gimmick into it. You have a sunspot data. I am giving you the parameters, and you are doing it, and you see the like curve with like predictions which you are getting it, and simultaneously you are getting a kind of an ARIMA predictions also, and you see the difference. Is there any question? Now, anyway, I'll have no options but to ask the organizer, is there anything else I'm expected to do?
Dr. Girish, you have shown ANN implementation.
Yeah.
At least those who are hooked, they are not the culprit for those who have left. So for deep learning also, this R is available.
Basically,
just increase the number of layers in this model itself.
No, it will take time, and basically, madam, what happens?
It takes time to, in fact, yes.
That is one thing, and second thing is that basically here I am using feed-forward neural networks for this purpose. But essentially, when you want to use time series, actual long memory, if you want to study, learn, then you will have to go for a recurrent neural network. The moment you are getting a recurrent neural network, then as I said, this you have got a vanishing gradient problem. So to solve that vanishing gradient problem, you are using LSTM cells, long short-term memory cells, and those commands are not available in this. That is available in Python. So, but now my PhD students, and all, what they have done is they are able to use Python also using R. They have
Python mate is available.
Python, but now they are using the R, using in the Python. No, R
Colab
with the Python command. Python command.
Yes, Google Colab, I think it is available.
Google Colab, so you can always do. No, Google Colab, so there is no problem. You can always do that. But in Google Colab, if there is any error and all, you cannot know that. First thing. Here, what I'm saying is that generally earlier what my students used to do is that they are using R also and Python also separately. Some part in R, a statistical part, and this AI part in the Python. Now they have integrated Python in the R itself. In the R itself, they can run Python also.
Python code.
In R environment.
They can call Python packages and use them.
Yeah. They have integrated it.
Right. Okay. So from your side, is it over?
This is the only topic which I can go on, and
yes, I know.
live data. So I thought, like, I just wanted them to appreciate in the sense that sunspot data is a common data, and many times I see that people say that neural network, whether they are really able to map the non-linearity of the data or not. So that's why I plotted this sunspot data, and so that when you are using this neural networks and when you are using an ARIMA, what is the problem when you are using the linear model for a non-linear data? So like I can keep on. I have got a live data also for soybean data. I can again explain that also. I have got some regression problems also, but the issue is, like, if they are ready or if they have understood or they want to appreciate, then that's fine. Otherwise, from my side, it's over.
Yes. You see, now participants, as Dr. Girish is saying, because he has worked a lot on this issue, he can tackle any kind of data set, and he has been working on price forecasting on real-time data set also. Using this approach, he was associated with NIAP also in market intelligence projects, and later on in other projects, and now also he's working in other projects, now market intelligence project also. He's still associated with us. So he can give any examples. Now it is up to you, like if any one of you would like to continue further on this, or maybe later on, like if at all you plan to pursue this, then you can interact with him. So that is one option, because I know this neural and all you cannot learn in one day. Idea in such kind of training programs is to expose you to different new techniques, because other things you have learned in your even MSc, PG, or you yourself are teaching, so you can follow. So if some exposure is there from the experts, you can obviously follow them in case it matches with your area of interest. So Dr. Girish, there is only one question in Q&A, so you can just go through that and maybe you can respond to that if you feel like.
Yeah. Dr. Ganga Devi, she has asked, sir, what is the major limitations of neural networks? In fact, one of the limitations which we generally say as it's a black box. Okay, I have already indicated it very well that like, if as an economist you want to explain why, what will be the price, you can say, but if somebody is asking why this price, that is not able to. मैडम आपका वो है,
please mute.
Session खत्म हो जाने दो.
So what I was trying to explain is that if you look at it, so if you so far you are interested in what will be the like price in the 10 months ahead or 2 months ahead, you can do it. But the moment you are asking for why the price will increase or why there is a decrease, and that's the reason that this all neural networks or this LSTM and LST all is not being much used by, is not being taken well by this stock market and all, because they want to know the regions, and here the regions are not being explained, and that's why initially since beginning it is always being considered as a black box. Of course, this black box has been made a gray box by using certain things in the front like in a back end, in the sense like we have used the fuzzy models and all kind of things, but still that is one of the limitations. I'll say the major limitations, and all other things are like if you use some explanatory variables into it, probably that will give more meaning to it. That's why this artificial neural networks and all more being used for character recognitions, more being used for classification, many other things, but it has not come in a big way for at least price forecasting, or I'll say that big way in the stock market. Otherwise, if that would have been there, then I would have been millionaire, if not billionaire.
Stock market में तो होता है गिरीश. You may not have tried your luck.
Basically, traders are not taking it in a big way, in the sense that reason is that they want to know that regions why this particular or why this market will behave in that. So
yes, that is the major limitation.
The regions for it. So that is one of the limitations. But otherwise, I know that like there are many company they are using this kind of machine learning, and they are trying to decode the markets. But of course, I'm not that good.
Good. So, yeah, it is the end of a very long session. In fact, he spoke non-stop, and still he managed to give you 2-3 minutes break also in between, and brought his own water. We could not even offer him tea also. So maybe it is due, like whenever you visit here, we will offer our due thing. So thank you, Girish, for introducing this very interesting topic. I don't think there is anyone else who is that much capable to deliver this difficult topic in such simple words. So if you share that small code, maybe it will be good for them to try on their own, to get some hands-on on it and add to their already existing little bit knowledge of R with which we have started. So with that, like we would like to thank you for part of our training program as a resource person. So we look forward for similar support in future too. Thanks a lot, Girish. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
And a special thanks to those 57 people who are like including me, that who stayed till end. And I'm really from the core of the hearts, besides organizers, because even for this 57, for this is a big number even, and I'll be happy if any one of you will be willing to work in this area, and so you can always contact me. I'll be happy to share my experience or my knowledge, whatever it is. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you. Big clap. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Vikas and Dilip, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. See you all.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Yeah. With presentation.